Hi, and welcome back to the Toxic Romance Cycle series. In this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into phase one reattachment. We're going to be looking at how this phase shows up in all the different areas of our life. To go along with this series, I created a free relationship reflection workbook. This workbook is designed to help you explore how each of the phases might be impacting your life. If you don't know what the toxic romance cycle is, it's where we explore what it feels like to be emotionally captive in a long term relationship with a partner who is persistently avoidant, neglectful, or emotionally abusive. So, if you want to learn more, keep on watching. All right, so reattachment. So, this is the first phase of the toxic romance cycle, and it's the honeymoon phase. So, this is what happens after you emotionally reconnect with your partner after a conflict, a period of emotional distance, or even just a silent breakdown. It's also what can happen if you are in a relationship where you're constantly on again and off again, you make up and break up. This is the makeup part. And it doesn't always have to follow a breakup. Sometimes this is what happens after weeks of experiencing your partner's emotional withdrawal, or what they call deactivation in avoidant attachment styles. So I also wrote here that he returns with warmth, with kindness, and with affection. You feel emotionally starved before this, and you really crave that closeness. So when you get to feel close with him again, it feels like nothing else matters. And this is also where the rose-colored glasses go back on. So we no longer really focus on the harm and the pain that we've experienced from our partner, either betraying us or emotionally pulling away, but instead we're so excited to be close to them again that we ignore their harmful patterns and the harm those behaviors have on us, and we just fall back into focusing on the potential of who he is and how great the relationship could be. All right, so what I'm going to explain in this video is how phase one reattachment shows up in every major area of your life. So we're going to look at it from a relational perspective. How is your dynamic with him? Emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually. We're going to look at it from all different angles. And I hope this will help you really pinpoint where you are in the cycle, because you can kind of see where it's showing up in every area of your life. And to start, we're going to do relationally. So, how is the dynamic? Like we just talked about in the previous slide, this is when we reconnect with our partner after a period of conflict, emotional distance, or even a physical separation. So, now that you're back together and everything's great again, you're intoxicated by being on his good side. So, after you've just spent the last 3 or maybe 4 weeks of him emotionally withdrawing from you and shutting down, pulling away, it feels really good to be on his good side. So, you kind of see that light back in his eyes. He's brought himself back emotionally into the relationship again, and you're like, yes, finally, like everything is good between us again. It feels like a breath of fresh air. So he's charming again. He's funny. He's silly. He's bubbly. Like there's just a lightness to the atmosphere in your home or when you are together again. You're reconnected, you're laughing again, you're touching again, and everything just feels really good. The truth about this cycle is that something that really defines this cycle is that there never really is any true reconciliation that happens. A part of the biggest issue in these dynamics is that you never really do talk about the core issues of the relationship. So even when things feel like they're healing, even when things feel like, you've worked on the issues, under the surface, nothing has actually been addressed, and the same harmful dynamics and patterns are still present. So he seems more present, more attentive, more supportive. Maybe he's texting you more throughout the day. He's sitting beside you on the couch. Maybe he's helping you with the kids with their bedtime routine. You guys are cooking dinner, you're cleaning the house again. It feels like a partnership. He feels more present and active in the home. He's less defensive, he's listening with intention, and it feels like he's really making an effort. You guys are operating like a team again, so that could be housework, finances, the kids. Like, you feel like you have your partner back, and you feel like everything that you just went through was worth it because you're back on each other's good sides, and you can see how well you really do work together. Quality time is a priority for him at this phase. So you can be vulnerable with him and he's accepting of your vulnerability and he's comforting towards you. Maybe you're sharing a little bit about what you experienced in phase 4 or phase 3, where he did something to really hurt you or violate your trust or betray you, and you're opening up and being vulnerable. At this phase, he's going to be more open and more supportive and more comforting when you share from a place of vulnerability. He can hold space for your hurt without becoming defensive. This is not something that he is normally capable of doing, but at this phase, he knows that he has to. And this is a key indicator of this phase. It's when he can hold space for you without becoming defensive. You take his engagement as an emotional investment, even if he hasn't addressed the root harm. He helps clean the kitchen, and you interpret this as a sign that he is becoming a better man. So, another big characteristic of this phase is the rose colored glasses, right? That really means that it's the way that we frame the behavior or reframe the behavior. So you see the small things that he's doing around the house or his engagement with you, and you take that as a sign that he's actually changing. Something that happens at this phase and throughout this cycle is that the good that we see in him is not actually transformative change, it's just performative. So at this phase, he knows that he has to keep you on your good side. He knows that he just did a lot of harm to you. He's very aware that he's done a lot of harm to you, but he wants to stay with you and he wants you to stay with him. So he's putting on an act and he's doing all that he can to keep you happy. And instead of seeing that, we interpret this as, oh, he's actually changing. This can also be something like he proposes a grand gesture as a symbol of his devotion to you. So maybe he violated your trust by cheating on you again for, the 10th time or the second time or even the first time, and you forgave him. And in order to make it up to you, to show you as a symbol of his devotion to you, he proposes to you at this phase. So when things are feeling really good again and you feel reconnected and reattached, he may offer or propose a grand gesture like asking you to marry him, or maybe to go on a vacation together, to move in together, maybe to buy a pet, or to even start a family together. These are all grand gestures that are supposed to symbolize his devotion to you, his commitment to the relationship, and his remorse. All right, so moving on to another area of our life, emotionally. So, how does this phase, reattachment, show up in our lives on an emotional level? So, you're no longer in survival mode at this phase, and it feels like peace. You're no longer in conflict. Everything is okay again. You're reconnected with your partner. You're free to touch him and to hug him and to kiss him and sit in his lap. You're free to be in your home and to laugh and make jokes, knowing that he's probably going to respond positively. It feels like peace, but it's not. It's just a pause. And this is a really important thing to remember. When you are emotionally captive in a relationship, when you are experiencing covert abuse and you're back in the honeymoon phase, what feels like peace is actually just a pause on the emotional abuse that you're experiencing. This is the honeymoon phase, so he's on his best behavior. And part of that makes it feel safe again. It feels like everything is good and things are actually moving in a positive direction, that things are actually healing in the relationship. But the truth is that it's just a pause on the abuse. You feel secure. His warmth, his affection, his attention, and care have been more consistent and more predictable. And they are at this phase. And that's why we let our guards down at this phase, because things really do feel safe again. Your trust in him feels restored. And maybe it may not feel completely restored, but it feels like it's moving in that direction. You do feel like you can trust him and let your guard down a little bit more because he's been less defensive, less reactive. He's been a lot more calm and patient. He's been more open minded. Maybe he's communicating with you more, checking in with you more. So it does feel like you can trust him. You feel more emotionally regulated and less reactive. So, because you're no longer in survival mode, your nervous system kind of like takes a breath. You're no longer crying in secret anymore, like leaving a social setting to go cry. Maybe you are with a partner who doesn't really attend events with you. Maybe they avoid spending time with your family and friends. So you're always that like single married girl that shows up to events. When you're showing up to an event and you're in phase 3 or phase 4, you're very, very emotionally reactive. You're very vulnerable. You're in a really sensitive place. So seeing other couples, or when people ask you, "Hey, how's so and so doing? Why isn't so and so here?" You may have a very emotional response to that, and you might have to leave a social setting because you're so emotionally upset and you don't want to cry in front of everyone. You feel grounded, you feel confident, you feel empowered, and maybe you feel resilient. So, part of reattachment is that feeling like that person in our life is on our side again and we feel reattached to them again. It really does give us this sense of grounding and confidence, because in phase 4, it feels like the entire world is literally falling apart. But again, you can take a breath and relax and actually think about the future again. You can dream again. You feel safe and like reassured again. You know who you are, your identity and your purpose feel restored and clearer. When you're in phase 4, in contrast to this, you dread the future. You don't know what's going to happen. Everything is so scary and so unpredictable. Because remember, when you're in a covertly abusive relationship, your nervous system is so wired to this person, is so dependent on this person, that you really do feel like when you're not in close contact with them, when things are not okay between you two, you really do feel like it's the end of the world, because all you want is to just reattach to them again. All you want to do is feel that closeness to them again. And now you have that in this phase. So everything just feels great again. You feel loved, you feel cherished, you feel belonging, and you feel worthy. Your self esteem feels restored here. When we have built our world around another person in a toxic relationship and we are not on good terms with that person, our identity takes a beating and it feels shattered and we lose parts of ourselves. And so when we're reconnected to this person, when we're reattached to this person again, our sense of belonging and our sense of identity feels restored. The world feels safe again, like you have someone to face it with when things get hard. The threat of being alone is over. A big part of this phase is a fear of being alone. It's a fear of abandonment, it's a fear of rejection, a fear of not being worthy of love and belonging in this life. And so when we're reconnected to our partner again, we feel this in a deep, deep place in ourselves that we have them on our side again and that we're not alone in this life and we have somebody to face the hard things with. You're hopeful and optimistic about the future, like starting a family, getting married, moving in together, or starting a business. And these are probably all things that they always tell you when they get back together with you, that they do want to have a family with you, that they do want to build a life and a future, and they feed you all of these dreams. And these are things that you really hold on to. And at this phase, you really do feel like they are attainable. All right, so how does phase 1 reattachment show up physically? So, how do we experience this phase in our bodies? So your body is no longer in survival mode, okay? Your nervous system sort of exhales. The tension may drop from your shoulders. Maybe you're not armoring as much. You don't have tension headaches as much, lower back pain, joint pain. Maybe you have a chronic autoimmune disease and you've seen a lessening in a flare up. Sleep and digestion have improved. And in contrast to this, in phase four, you either couldn't sleep at all you could do was sleep, or you had no appetite, or you were just eating everything that you possibly could. Ultimately, you were just trying your best to find ways to soothe all of that internal emotional discomfort that you were experiencing. And so at this phase, that threat is no longer present. When you are trauma bonded to another person, the greatest threat is no longer being attached or connected to that person. And that's what you were experiencing in phase four, in entrenchment. Now, in phase one, that threat no longer exists. You are reattached to them, you are reconnected to them. So your body can just take a breath. Everything in the world feels okay again. You don't freeze when he enters the room. When you are in a covertly abusive relationship and you are not on good terms with your partner and they enter a space, the hairs on the back of your neck go up. You don't feel safe. You don't know what's going to happen. He is so unpredictable. You don't know if he's going to emotionally punish you by ignoring you or picking a fight with you. Or just pretending like you don't even exist. So your body just sort of tenses and freezes up when you're around that person because you don't know what's going to happen. Things are so unpredictable. And that isn't what's happening at this phase. Again, things feel safe. You make dinner without choking down tears. So in phase four, you are very emotionally dysregulated. Everything feels like the worst case scenario, and you feel like you just can't do anything right, and everything is a mess, and everything is hopeless. And you don't feel like that at this phase. At this phase, things really feel stable again. All right, you feel energized, motivated, and you feel like yourself again. You physically feel more energized. So you physically feel like you can just conquer the world, right? You can clean the house, you can run errands, you can like make dinner and dessert. You can start new projects with optimism. Maybe you're not procrastinating as much. You feel like you kind of have your brain back. There is a hop in your step and a song in your heart. Like you are humming along, you're dancing around, like everything, like you're just looser, like your body feels looser. Everything is good. Your body feels regulated, but it's not because you're emotionally secure, it's because the threat has paused. And that is something that I'm going to talk about all the time when we cover this with this series, because the threat is coming back. That's why it's a cycle, right? It always cycles back. We go through phase one, phase two, phase three, and phase four. But right now, the threat has paused. Everything feels okay again. And so you feel emotionally secure. You may feel more connected to your own body, accepting and approving of it. And this brings us back to the previous slide. When we are trauma bonded to another person, when we are in a toxic relationship, our sense of identity, our self esteem, our worthiness are all built around the approval of this other person. And so when we're not in a good place with them, or if they did something to like violate our trust or betray us, like maybe he cheated on you, however they feel about you is how you're going to feel about yourself. So when your partner is accepting and approving of you and your feelings and your needs and your body, you're going to feel that way about yourself too. It's almost like they give you permission to be okay with you. All right, so this was just the first half of how phase one reattachment shows up in the different areas of our life. In the next video, we're going to continue exploring this phase and how it shows up emotionally, sexually, socially, and spiritually in our lives as well. If this cycle and this content are resonating with you, please be sure to download my free relationship reflection workbook. It's designed to help you process each phase and to explore how this cycle might be impacting your life. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more like this. Take care, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.